The airline's cost will probably be a bit higher when borders reopen. The food is not going to be perhaps delivered in the traditional way, but there's going to be bento boxes. B, hotels will figure out some way of containing costs, but maybe there'll be some cost increase.
Singapore has always been a preferred destination for Indian travelers, but the last few months have been extremely critical for the tourism industry. Today on our show CT Cares, we'll be joined by the Regional Director of Singapore Tourism Board, Mr. G.B. Sridhar, to talk about the impact of the pandemic and also the revival strategy for Singapore post-pandemic. Mr. Sridhar, thank you so much for joining us on Curly Tales. Well, to begin with, Singapore has always been a preferred destination for Indians, be it leisure or business. While I'm sure the pandemic has had a severe impact on the tourism, how is Singapore now coming back on its feet?
It's a pleasure to be on this, Kamya. Thanks for having this interactive session with me. In our 56 years of history, Singapore has never seen something like this. I'm sure in many parts of the world, this total standstill in travel has been very, very difficult to handle. For Singapore, the international visitor arrivals from January to June is a 2.7 million, which is a 71% drop for the same period last year. That shows you how severe this impact has been.
All right. And the Singapore airport is known to be the world's best airport in the world. And as and when slowly and gradually as we open up, are there any rules or guidelines that tourists need to know before entering the country? And in fact, if you can answer, has the country opened its borders or not yet?
And as far as borders are concerned, we have started in a very deliberate fashion a reciprocal green lane, or it is called travel bubbles, right? In many countries, we are now starting to talk about travel bubbles. So reciprocal green lane arrangements have commenced with some cities in China. With Malaysia, we are also starting the reciprocal green lane arrangement. And for Changi, I think there's been a complete stop when this COVID-19 situation happened. But slowly, we are starting to have some transit traffic happening. Changi is also starting to gear up for more eventual opening of borders.
All right. But is there a mandatory test report that's required or any test happening at the airport? Any official announcement around that?
For the reciprocal green lane arrangement, whoever is coming into the country, there are some safety protocols involved. So it ranges from, of course, COVID-19 tests. It could include a stay-home notice so that you have to be self-isolated or isolated in certain designated premises for about 14 days or 7 to 14 days, depending on what's the situation. So there are some safety guidelines. There are definitely some measures in place. And I think this is going to be the new norm. This COVID-19 is going to be with us for a while. By many accounts, it is anywhere between 18 to 24 months or longer.
Absolutely. And because of all of this, I understand that technology has taken a lead like never before. And I was reading somewhere that Singapore is using drones to monitor social distancing as well as gatherings, sending footage to police. So if you can take us through the amazing innovations that have happened to ensure safety of travelers.
So technology is going to come in more and more. And we are looking at how do we go a lot more digital? How do we go a lot more contactless? So example is like Changi has a kiosk where the proximity sensors instead of touch screens are going to be used. The immigration lanes will use more and more biometric facial recognition rather than thumbprints and passing over the passport. So the biometric facial recognition will be a lot more in use. Robots, people doing it, but robots going into places to make sure that the disinfectant mist is done to clean up the place.
Absolutely. And this just proves the fact how necessity is the mother of invention. And with so much technological advancement, is it going to be a little more expensive to travel to Singapore now?
I mean, put it this way, I think travel to any part of the world is going to get a lot more cautious, safety conscious. Yeah. More protocols are going to be in place. And that will naturally add some costs to travel experiences that's going to come. A lot of travel trade talk is about the airline's cost will probably be a bit higher when borders reopen. B, hotels will figure out some way of containing costs, but maybe because of There's a lot more sanitation needs to be taken care of. There's a lot more contactless, digitized experiences to be delivered. Maybe there'll be some cost increase.
Absolutely. You mentioned about how air tickets are going to get expensive. So let's talk about Singapore in specific. If and when flights resume, is there a particular guideline that the airlines will be following? Talk about the national carrier, which is Singapore Airlines, or any other. So anything about the flying capacity or the middle seat to be empty? Any guidelines that need to be followed?
From a lot of literature that's coming out, I think this reserving a middle seat or have flying at half capacity, I think all of that is now being questioned. I think a lot of airlines are relooking at how best they can handle customers and travelers, even without blocking middle seats or flying at 50% capacity. And things like having the airline crew in safety dressing, no contact as far as possible, no contact between the passenger and the airline crew. Everything is going to be in bento boxes. The food is not going to be perhaps delivered in the traditional way, but there's going to be bento boxes, probably a lot of contactless and digitized things are going to be in place. The way the airlines, the aircrafts are currently constructed will need some time to change all those specifications and how things are being done.
What about travel insurance? Is it going to be mandatory for all travelers coming to Singapore? Any announcement around that?
Today, we are not saying that Singapore will look at compulsory travel insurance. I don't think any other country is also looking along those lines. But the traveler themselves will start looking at travel insurance as an important step to take before flying. Yeah. So I think travel insurance will be on many people's minds as they start to travel again. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Indian market in specific. Like I said, Singapore continues to be a preferred destination for Indians. How big or important is the Indian market for Singapore?
So the connections between India and Singapore have grown from strength to strength. And we are not talking about just a few select cities. Of course, our key cities from where the travelers come from will be cities like Mumbai, Chennai, Delhi, Bangalore. Other cities, secondary cities, and important cities are also contributing to number of travelers to Singapore. So interestingly, India has moved up one notch higher and higher in terms of importance to Singapore's tourism. So today, India is the third largest tourism arrival market for Singapore after China and Indonesia. And in fact, in 2019, when we welcomed about 1.42 million visitors, so it is 1.42 million visitors from India to Singapore in 2019, that made it the fifth year in a row where India has given us more than 1 million visitors, right? So and that continues. India is a very, very important source market overall. India is our number one cruise travel source market. It is always a pleasant thing to note that Indian travelers see Singapore as a must-visit destination. They see Singapore as a repeat destination.
Absolutely. And in fact, I myself have been to Singapore about 5 times, and my daughter clearly has a lot of fond memories.
There you go.
And I'm sure she's going to make another plan very soon as she grows older, probably with her friends. And I'll bring her again, probably. Also, there's a constant evolution, newer places being developed, newer experiences that Singapore always has to offer. But are there any plans now to shut or discontinue any of the experiences that we have done in the past, or any touristy places that Singapore may be looking at, putting a halt or shutting at this point of time?
So over the years, a lot of enhancements have been made with all the popular attractions. So whether you talk about the Wildlife Reserve Singapore, under which you have the zoo, the bird park, the river safari, and the night safari, they have continuously evolved their experiences. So, for example, for the four different parks under the Wildlife Reserve Singapore, India is one of the key source markets, and for an attraction like Night Safari, if I'm not mistaken, India is the number one source market. So a lot of the plans that have been in place, whether it's at Resorts World Sentosa, Marina Bay Sands, Wildlife Reserve Singapore, Gardens by the Bay, a lot of these attractions will be looking at what are some of the enhancements that needs to be made, and we will continue doing that enhancements.
You did mention how big India is as a market for Singapore tourism, but just tourism as a whole, how much does it contribute to the overall GDP of the country? And what kind of support has the tourism board got really from the government? Because maybe India can take some key lessons there.
I mean, for the tourism sector, it contributes to about 4% to the gross GDP, to the gross domestic product. And given this COVID-19 circumstances, we had to relook at many of the support schemes across the various economic sectors. So for tourism specific, we started a tourism recovery action for a task force, right, which we call TRAC. So the Tourism Recovery Action Task Force was look at developing and implementing strategies to aid the tourism industry and position ourselves for the recovery. We had a job support scheme to enable companies to pay, rather the government paid part of the salaries for companies so that the staff can be maintained. And the next step was within Singapore was the domestic tourism. So we have started a domestic tourism campaign called Singapore Rediscovered, urging Singaporeans and local residents to go and enjoy Singapore and to see some of its hidden gems.
Absolutely. I think domestic tourism is going to take the lead. Even in India, there is a whole conversation around vocal for local, where domestic tourism is taking the lead. You did mention somewhere along the conversation that it may take 18 to 24 months before a vaccine is out or things to get normal. So just with respect to travel and tourism industry reviving, would like to know how soon do you think things will bounce back?
We are not saying that it will definitely take about 18 to 24 months, but I think what we are doing is, in terms of setting our mindset for planning purposes, or looking at how do we work with different players and parties to sort of plan out some of our recovery strategies. So with that in mind, yeah, we are looking at, we need to be prepared for the long haul. It is going to be a long, tedious process, and therefore, whether it is 18, 24 months, is it sooner, is it a bit later, it doesn't quite matter, as long as we are starting to do some of the steps that have to be in place.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to coming to Singapore very soon, hopefully.
Please.
Lovely speaking to you, Mrs. Sridhar. Thank you so much for sharing those wonderful insights with us. And I'm sure a lot of Indian travelers are tempted to make a plan to Singapore.
No, thanks for this opportunity, Kami. I think my parting shots are that these are indeed very tough times, and I'm sure all of us are coping with it in one way or the other. One thing's for sure, travel and tourism will restart. The travel bug in all of us will make us travel again.
All right. Wonderful chatting with you.
Thank you, Kamia.